Welcome to another episode of Living with FASD podcast, Candid Conversations with Patty Casper. I'm your host, Patty Casper, and this show is it is for those who are affected by prenatal alcohol exposure, their families and loved ones, and anyone else wanting to learn more about fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Brought to you by someone with both professional and living experience. So returning to the mic today after what seems like forever is Dr. Kathryn Page, who I well love. She joined me for the first 3 episodes and for some special episodes since then. And after, oh gosh, I think it's been almost 6 months, Kathy, you're back. And this is right about the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So it is fitting that you're back now. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah.
Really.
So what paths has life been taking you down lately?
Well, I'm in Mexico. You can probably see Mexico hot pink right behind me. And I have actually been dealing with some health stuff, a bad hip that's probably going to need to get swapped out for a new one very soon, and all kinds of stuff. But really, moving toward becoming a full-time Mexican.
Wow.
Yeah. In the meantime, though, we're just winding up. I'm going to be doing the last of 55 6-hour trainings for Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health.
Okay. That's quite the project.
It is quite the project. And the wonder of it all is that LA County decided to make it mandatory for its mental health clinicians.
Yeah.
So I'm having a great time doing that. And then I'm going to have...
Because if we can get Northern Cal social workers, then maybe that will spread onward to other of the large, because we have 2 state school systems, University of California and Cal State. So if we have UC Davis, that's part of the University of California system, if we can get the Cal State system also.
It's actually, let me stop you there, because UC Davis isn't in this role. They have the center. It's called the Northern California Regional Training Academy for social workers.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's so it's really not
part of the college
part
system.
of the UC system at all.
Yeah.
Part of the no. This is for social workers coming up. So, but we're I hear it from you, and I'm so glad to hear it that it's we're still working away, not quite dripping, but a little more forcefully than that.
Yeah, our efforts are. We're approaching the corner that we can turn soon, I hope.
Well, maybe.
Oh my goodness. So are you doing anything down there in Mexico?
Doing anything like
FASD wise, or is it just purely enjoying retirement?
No, I'm doing trainings from here.
Okay.
In Mexico, you look around and you see almost no dysregulated kids. Nowhere. Every now and then. But not like in the States, where every 3rd kid is totally dysregulated, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
What
do you think that's about?
I think there's not a lot of fetal alcohol.
Okay.
I also think it's about, the families are all constantly interacting. Mm-hmm. There's not much cell phone activity. Mm-hmm. And so you see families out and everybody's just having fun with each other. and everybody is included, little tiny babies, old hunched over grandmas, everybody's included. And so nobody is like spinning out, feeling alienated and alone and nobody's listening, and so I have to bang on the chair to get attention. No.
Yeah.
I think there's just, I may still be in the honeymoon phase, right? But, but that's what I see.
Yeah. What I'm hearing in that is the breakdown of the nuclear family, right? Because we are so mobile here in the States. When you fledge from the nest, you go on and you do your own thing. And if that's out of town or out of state, who cares? Right?
I think that's a huge part of it.
Let me ask you a super quick question. Can you hear the dog?
No.
Okay, cool.
But I'm half deaf.
That doesn't help me.
But no, I don't hear the dog at all.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 So Mexico, the other thing that Mexico has is it has a spiritual life that is pretty common to everybody. It's the same structure, it's the same sort of ground rules.
Very homogenous.
And so everybody has the same God and everybody has the same instruction. And I will never forget one of the first things that I heard when I came a year ago, which was in a procession. The whole town was in it, it seemed like. And the priest, I had a chance to hear what he was saying. It was around Good Friday, and Mary was mourning, right? And she needed consolation. And so the priest was saying, yeah, Mary needs consolation. So do you. So does everybody. And moreover, you are the consolers as well. I don't care. You'll be depressed, you'll be sick, you're going to be on your deathbed. It is your, job as a human to console others. And here's the whole town listening to this for the umpteenth time. And I do believe it has filtered through.
Yeah.
So Mexico is it's not just a place where there's bright colors and cheap beer. It's, deeply, deeply, the connections, the human connections and spiritual connections and cultural are very real. And so there's hardly any of that sense of, if there's something wrong, if you're not feeling good, go out and buy a bigger truck or, lose some more weight or, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really like, just take good care of each other and all will be well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Okay. So, I really my mind is boggled that living with FASD is just about a year old already. So, as we sit down to record this, episode 48 is what is available for the public. And that just blows my mind that it has, I'm just mind boggled. So we've been working closely together for over a year now. And as our life has been shifting and moving, so do our social relationships a bit. It seems like you and I spend a lot of time and then we go apart and we do our other things and then we come back and then and I hope that continues, right? I don't want to lose you. You're just a joy and a delight to be to call my friend. I'm honored.
But likewise, Patty, and maybe I can get you down here for a visit to Mexico sometime.
Yeah, after Mama passes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the things that it has been a challenge, I think, lifelong, and this is where I think the audience is really going to relate. Lifelong, there are challenges with friendships or employer-employee relationships or whatnot, because when we are living with FASD, we have some glitches. I think glitches was the word that you used, right? We've got glitches. Sometimes I joke about it and say, oh, my FASD was showing. Like I was working on something that was pretty important and then I can't find it, right? I can't find the email that the original came in, and I had to humbly go back and say, I'm sorry. Yeah. And sometimes people are more than willing to give grace around that, and other times they give you grace, but you can tell they're putting a markup. So what are your thoughts around all that?
Well, I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I just had another prompt to think about it yesterday.
Oh,
and so I'll tell you what brings it really close to the surface for me. Let me just step back and say, in not only my observation, but other people's, when they've talked about what they've observed in the field, people that have been around for a long time, a really common conclusion is one of the reasons that fetal alcohol doesn't stick on public awareness is that it does look like on purpose behavior a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to remember, if we were flapping our hands or, doing other sort of visible neurodevelopmentally different things.
Mm-hmm.
People would go, oh, geez, disability there.
Yeah.
And there are times when I wish we could walk around with a crawl on our forehead. Memory and tracking disabled,
right,
to different degrees. Dysregulation heightened at different times.
Just squirrel.
Yeah, there you go.
I chase squirrels.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that. So yesterday, I have rented
see a
out my
T-shirt
house.
coming.
There you go. So there are all kinds of names for the kinds of things that we deal with that are really manifestations, right, of the brain damage. Mm-hmm. All kinds. There's the really pejorative ones that we all know. There's all kinds. And then there's the more sophisticated psychological ones like, well, the Oprah brand of psychology of like, well, this person must have fear of success. Or
the good old secondary gain.
There you go. Yeah. Or internal unconscious conflict, or go, on and on. Secondary gain's one of my favorites. Yeah. But so yesterday, what?
I was just going to say what this is it's the same sounds of judgment that we've grown up hearing, except it's dressed up in medical and mental health language.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's still judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just tell you about what came up for me yesterday. I'm renting out my house in Sonoma to a nice guy. It's only been 2 months so far, and already my mail situation, it's not getting forwarded to me. So the power company and the garbage company have both been trying to send me messages because autopay has not been working. And so if I had been getting mail, I would have addressed it, but I didn't. And so yesterday I got a note from my tenant saying, the garbage company cut off service. And he said, and the same thing happened with PG&E a little while back. And he said, am I going to have to brace myself for more nasty surprises? Ooh. And then his last line was PhD and airhead.
Wow.
Right. I felt like I'd been hit in the chest, kicked by a mule. because I
Yeah.
liked this guy.
Yeah.
And I thought he was, really sweet. And so I just, after I recovered, and I called the recycling company and I got everything going back again. I wrote back and said, done. I may not have told you, I have a neurological condition that causes me issues with memory and tracking. Plus, the mail was not getting forwarded to me, period. But one of the things I think that we have developed is biting our tongues, to not say what we'd like to say.
I was biting mine, hearing your story.
Oh, yeah. Like you could probably think of things to say.
That are not appropriate for a podcast.
Well, correct. Correct. The other thing that I think we've developed is most of us, some of it, I don't know how many of us, great skill at apology.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of us, there's a very fine line between useful, healthy, responsible apology and, walking around cowering because what have I done now? And oh my God, I'm so sorry. And walking around groveling, tail between the legs, which doesn't do anybody any good. In fact, it puts the onus on the other person to make us feel better.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the defense mechanisms, right? There's fight, flight, freeze, or fawning, right? Where we appease to the point of it's our detriment.
Right. But then you put us together, if we were raised in an alcoholic family, that adds a layer of, oh, yes, I know it's my fault. And I know that in order to survive, I better really take that on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, for the longest time, I tried to separate out what of this condition is, at least as it plays out in individuals like me and the other people that I worked with, what is psychological and what is neurological. I've tried and tried. And then finally, I realized that's barking up the wrong tree. It's really, in what way does the psychological affect the neurological? In what way does the neurological impact the psychological? Family of origin, attachment patterns. They really, really interact. Yeah. And that's my mission in doing these trainings in LA, is to help people understand that. It's a fairly sophisticated level of mental health practice. Yeah. And I don't think I'm really conveying it that great. Only a few people are actually like, oh my God, yeah. Yeah. But it is my mission. Yeah. Yeah.
And because this truly is so complex, and I think it has become more complex than it needs to be, simply because we have spent years sweeping things under the rug, assuming responsibility for things that aren't ours. And once that track gets laid, it's hard to undo it.
But you raise a really interesting point, and that is, how do we decide what's our responsibility and what is not? It's kind of like if you're an alcoholic and you're in recovery. It's your responsibility to avoid people, places, and things that are going to trigger you. As somebody with fetal alcohol that really pretty much knows what it's made of, more or less, it is my responsibility at this point to, first of all, fix whatever I break. And I do break things. And second, do everything I can to keep track of time and dates. Everything I can. And so even if after the fact something breaks, something screws up, I don't know if you go through this, Patty, but and if you do, I'd love to hear it. Like trying to sort out what's mine here, what do I own, and what do I, as a dignified human being, what do I push back on? Yeah. What do I say? Render unto Caesar, right? Yeah. What do I say? No. This time, no, this one's on you. Yeah. Yeah. Do you do that? Do you go through that?
I would say for the most part, my process is I just suck it up.
Ooh,
I let people say what they're going to say.
yeah,
And if there's merit in it, I work on it.
yeah.
And if
And
there's not, then my next question is addressing this going to be helpful, or is it going to further rupture things?
good question.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And do I have the perfect approach? Maybe, maybe not. You know, as with anything, sometimes approach A works, and other times you really should go with approach B. And
I was thinking
sometimes we
about,
estimate that incorrectly, right? But
we do,
that's what
we
teaches
do.
us.
You know, thinking about my encounter yesterday with the tenant, what I really did want to say from a position of dignity, not knee-jerk reaction, is I trust that there will be no more name calling. Set boundaries. We have standards too,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's kind of hard for us to come to.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
We have rights, we have standards, we have limits and boundaries, and
Yeah.
we have every right to hold other people accountable, even if we're feeling really, really sorry for whatever part is ours.
Yeah. 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 Because that was totally uncalled for.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm
It
talking,
was
you know,
very
Patty,
passive aggressive.
oh my God, I don't even see the passivity in it. It was flat out
Well, I was giving
freaking,
him the benefit of the doubt.
it was aggressive.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Don't you?
I
Giving other people the benefit of the doubt.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to say, if anybody's noticing I'm talking kind of lispy and funny, I had Botox for the first time in my life, and it somehow sort of paralyzed my lips. I can't
Well,
eat
because that's
without.
what it does, right?
No, well, I guess it is.
Uh-huh.
I guess it is.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened to anybody else I know. So I'm like, to eat, I have to hold my lips closed.
I
So
mean,
I
because
hope it's,
that's why it works with headaches as
yeah,
a mitigation for headaches, because
right,
it keeps you from furrowing your brow,
right.
which keeps you from building up the tension.
Right, but I know of nobody else, and at this age, I am knowing an awful lot of my fellow wrinkled ladies who have Botox, and
Yeah.
nobody has to hold their mouth closed to eat. Anyway, moving right along. That was a squirrel. So I think what I'm curious about, and I wonder if you're able to share anything, is what you've gathered from those closest to you about their what they do, what they have to do, their reactions, their, you know, how they conceive of the glitches.
Well, I can say, you know, and just for the sake of boundaries, you know, I tend not to talk about my marriage at all. But as my husband listens to the podcast, Alan, you're my number one fan. I love you to death. I've noticed changes in the way he approaches situations. So where there is education, there is change, right?
Ah,
And I think we can take that to all of our relationships. You know, and it's just one more reason to become involved with advocacy and awareness raising.
yeah.
Right? Because we don't say we're disabled as an excuse, right? It's not that at all. It's just because the way we're wired, some things just don't occur to us that
Right,
occur to other people.
right, right. I think rather than an excuse, it's it's an explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
like
some
it's like
people don't distinguish between the two.
I know that.
But there
I
really
know,
is a difference.
and some people do use it as an excuse. I will never forget a story by Brenda McCreight, whose book should be read by everybody, who is now in heaven, I'm sure. And she talked about her 19-year-old adopted guy who came, I think I might have told you this, he came home late. They were all fetal alcohol. They were all well diagnosed and understood. But dude comes home after curfew late and opens the door, and she's standing there with that look on her face. And he says, "Okay, Mom, but remember, I have fetal alcohol. I have time management issues." Excuse. She's right in front of it. And she says, "Right, you are. We're going to work on those. And from now on, your curfew is 8. And when you can manage 8 for a week, then we might bump it up to 8:30. So I think, there will be times, and certainly there will be people where the excuse also happens.
Yeah.
I may not be entirely free of that myself. There's a streak of laziness in me. There's also a streak of easy fatigue.
Yeah.
Right. And so distinguishing between those two is almost impossible for me because they feel exactly the same. The only
and that
difference
does
is,
take diligence.
well,
And a willingness to tease it out.
That's right. That's right. A little obsessive. And the only real difference is in the laziness if I can identify something that I'm avoiding. But there's always something I'm avoiding. So I do have friends, and I wonder about you. You were about to say something.
Oh, simply that we still need to have our episode on persistent demand avoidance.
Oh, well, that that comes perilously close to home.
It's been on our radar for almost a year.
Yeah,
we haven't gotten there yet.
Right.
Let's schedule that for our next conversation.
Okay. I don't know much about it. I haven't read the research, but I will. So thinking about friends and how they perceive us.
Yeah.
My 2 closest friends still do not get it. My 3 closest friends do not get it. I love them. They're kind. They're helpful. They're understanding. One of them is a great believer in affirmation kind of thing. And she says, well, you've been telling yourself since a very early age that you have a bad memory. So therefore you have a bad memory.
Yeah.
And she's dear.
Yeah.
And another one is she is just irritated at me 6 ways from Sunday, when I left my nightgown at a hotel where we stayed a couple nights ago here in Mexico. It's just inevitable. I'm going to leave something. It just happens no matter what I do. And she gets irritated every damn darn time. Sorry. I don't know how profane we're allowed to be here. I assume that you can always beep that one out.
Tell me how you really feel, Kathryn.
Well, so when you were saying that education and advocacy are important, I agree. But I think we are wired, and I've said this probably more than once to you, and I always say it in trainings, that we are wired to react to certain behaviors. We are wired to react by distancing, by anger, by taking things personally when people, do stuff, the kind of stuff that I do a lot. And I now know it's because I have got a couple of screws loose.
Yeah. And it's not personal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not personal.
Now, Patty, a person could argue with that and say, well, if I was going to give you $10,000 for not leaving anything this trip, do you think you could do it? The answer is probably yes. Because that kicks in the level of adrenaline, that turns on the lights, that starts the chain of events, that results in all the executive functioning apparatus a little more on the alert.
Yeah.
So it's really people, they try to sort of psychologize it and pathologize it all over the place.
But what follows that, right? I mean, if I go to if I'm staying at a conference or whatever, and I know that I'm going to get 10 grand for not leaving anything in the hotel room, yeah, of course, I'm going to be opening every drawer as wide as I can and looking, right? Of course I'm going to do that. And I might get the 10 grand, but what people won't see is the exhaustion that
Absolutely.
follows.
Absolutely. Because you're not just opening every drawer, you're opening it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Maybe I forgot this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I want to find the piece of research, and it's old, that did the MRIs, the functional MRIs, with the simple arithmetic test. Everybody could do it, exposed and not exposed. But the amount of the brain that had to get recruited, that lit up, was more, considerably more in the alcohol exposed people. Yeah. Which means that it's a lot more work.
Yeah. Yeah. To
And
do the very mundane parts of life.
Right. I think, see what you think. My guess is that a lot of us need a lot of rest. Yeah. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with that. I mean, I know right now I'm in a collaborative with 3 other phenomenal FASD women.
Oh, right. Antonia, right?
Antonia and Jody and Deb.
Yes. Yes. Right.
And the 4 of us are polishing each other's books for release on September 9th.
Oh my God.
So it's not only finishing our own project for a deadline that is looming ever larger, but it's also contributing to 3 other very important projects that are equally important. On top of everything else that I'm doing. So part-time social worker, part-time hospice chaplain, putting this, program together for the local community college.
Right.
Caretaking my mother, and making sure that all the dogs get lots of exercise so that they don't destroy the home when I am out of it.
So is it fair to say that
and I've been exhausted.
Right. And you would be exhausted anyway, even without fetal alcohol. With that load, you would be. Now, with the fetal alcohol, and given that accomplishing each of these tasks, series of tasks, requires a ton more. You're probably good and tired, and I hope you are getting good sleep.
I go to bed by 8 o'clock.
Do you sleep?
When I feel exhausted, when my body is slowing me down, then I'm asleep by 8:30.
Good.
Otherwise, I'm farting around on this thing for a little while. But I'm always shutting everything down by 10.
Great.
Once in a while, my mind keeps racing, or I like dark and quiet. My husband likes ambient light and background noise. I shoot for a lot. And I know there are going to be couples that relate to this. I like HGTV and things like that because there's no plot.
Right.
I mean, it'd be nice to see what the finished product looks like, but that's not going to keep me awake. Right. Unlike Law and Order or heaven forbid a movie, in which case I'm going to be up for hours and I'm really going to be paying for it the next day. And he's just thoroughly burned out on DIY. I get that too. I do. But sometimes and he gets up, he goes to bed between 7:30 on most nights because he's up at
Wow.
3.
Oi.
He works in the oil fields.
Uh,
So, his alarm starts going off 3:30, and he's literally at work by the time my alarm goes off at 5.
Hey,
And
listen, you know what? I'm tired just hearing this, but I'm also looking at the clock.
and you got to roll.
I have to go pretty soon, but I don't want us to just leave the subject,
Yeah.
unrevisited for just a moment.
Yeah.
Um, I think this part doesn't get talked about very much. The part about how do other people perceive us? How do we manage those perceptions? How do we manage the inconveniences that we cause others and ourselves? God knows. I think that the field so far, it's been too busy trying to deal with how do you raise kids and, and all like that to get to this level. But I really am hoping that this becomes part of the conversation going forward. And I would love to hear really from anybody out there who has any thoughts in response to this aspect of fetal alcohol.
Yeah. So because we were kids, but then we grew up. And it was our parents we were inconveniencing or embarrassing. Now it's our coworkers, our neighbors, our landlord, our, whoever. And so things change, but it's still that same line of what we have to debate about with ourselves. When is it an excuse? When is it an explanation? When is addressing it going to be helpful, or when is it going to make things worse? What's the best course of action? And I think one of the best things, truly, we want a social circle that is broad and includes neurotypicals as well as neurodiverse, right? But just as I was a kid and loved diabetic camp because I felt normal, it is really important, I think, for all of us who are living with FASD to have connections with other people that have this, simply because it's the one space where we don't have to explain anything, where we feel embraced because they get it.
Yeah. And not to be such a contrarian, Patty, but I'm sorry, I kind of am. I think we still do need to explain because we're all so different. And I think that for me to assume that I know what your inner world is like and vice versa is not valid, because I don't.
Well, So let me tease that out a little bit more. It's not that we don't have to explain anything, but we know that that's going to be met with I can see that.
Right, exactly.
As opposed to, you're just lazy.
Exactly.
Or you're just a pig, or you're just this, that, or the other thing, right?
Yeah. Or you've just programmed yourself to think.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lovely talk. And I do look forward to more. And I really thank you for providing this broad forum. And I think it is a wonderful thing. And what do we need to do to say goodbye?
Well, I want to remind everybody that there is now a community on patreon.com. So if you go to patreon.com/livingwithfasdpodcast, I have a page there, a space where you can make comments about the episode, whatever. You can, membership is free. However, if you want to, for a very low level, help support the costs, the very real costs that there are in putting this podcast up week after week after week, right? The Zoom account, all the accounts that I have for prepping all my templates and doing my editing and what little I can get done. All of those things cost money. So for $5, $10, or $15 a month, not a week, but a month. So that's less than the price of coffee once a week. You can help support the podcast, and that would be extremely, yeah, I'd be extremely
Sounds like a
grateful for
really
that.
good idea to me, and I'm going to go.
Yeah.
See
All
ya.
right. Love you, Kathryn.
Love
Take
you
care.
too. Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. Take good care. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time on Living with FASD. Bye for now.